Gentrification is when a neighborhood that used to be affordable suddenly becomes expensive. This usually happens because much richer people start moving into these poorer areas. As these wealthy people show up, rent, food, and stores start changing to fit what the new people want. Eventually, the families who've lived there for years can't afford to stay in those areas anymore and they get shoved out. This is actually happening right now in Mexico City and it's a big deal. Ever since remote work was normal, lots of people have been moving to the nice neighborhoods in Mexico City. These aren't just tourists visiting for a week. They're staying long term and working overtime while still getting paid in US dollars. Since they're making way more money than the local residents, landlords had figured out something simple. They could charge foreigners double. So that's what lots of them are starting to do. Apps like Airbnb are making this much worse. Every time someone turns their apartment into a short term rental for tourists, that's one less home available for actual local families. Less housing means higher prices for everyone else. This has real consequences. There's many families whose buildings have gotten sold and then they were told to leave just within the few months. They would always try to find a new place, but many of them couldn't find anything that they could afford. It's not just about the money, it changes everything in the neighborhood. Local shops get shut down and can be replaced with much fancier restaurants and nicer places for tourists and people staying there. This is happening in Charlotte, North Carolina, the city where I live in. Neighborhoods near uptown that used to be much more working class are starting to change. Older houses are getting torn down to be replaced with luxury apartments and expensive new buildings. In some of these neighborhoods, property value has quite literally doubled in just 5 years. I've seen the effects of this firsthand through volunteering at my food pantry. A lot of families who come in necessarily aren't homeless or unemployed. They're just stuck with food insecurity because their rent keeps climbing faster than they can than their paychecks can catch up to. So something has to change. And a lot of time so something has to change. And a lot of time that's the groceries. I've talked to people at the pantry who used to live in neighborhoods that are now considered up and coming, and they tell me straight up that they can't afford to live there anymore or they're barely hanging on. Some of them moved further out of the city just to find rent that they could afford, which is causing longer commutes and less time with their family. Others are still in their old neighborhoods, but they're having to cut back on what they can afford to keep up with the rising costs. So that's the part that has stuck with me. Gentrification doesn't just show up as new buildings and rich people moving in, it shows longer lines at the food pantries, families having to choose between rent and groceries, and people being stuck in a harsh food insecurity.